Archangel, a gathering of gargoyles, Chapter 9, the suzerain. The heron led them through close woods, down dry ravines and along shadowed paths. Ariel heard still the vampire's screams, the yelping of the two gargoyles in the distance behind, and bit her lip in fear for them. The Icarus seemed to be able to bat them aside at a blow. All at once, after they'd been running what seemed a very long time, a great angry shriek rose behind them. The vampire burst into the air above the hills, circling. His white garments blazed amid the nothing darkness of his wings. Ariel listened hard, straining her ears, but she heard no sound of the gargoyles now. Above the trees the Icarus scanned, eyes sweeping the hills. Ariel and the girl shrank deeper into the crack along which they fled. Presently, with a chirrup of rage, the witch's son swooped away towards town and the Magus's house. They followed the heron till the veiled girl was staggering. Ariel came to a halt in the thick brake of trees. "Heron!" she cried. "We must rest!" The white bird curved around in a low arc and alighted. "Mortal creatures," she murmured, "I had forgot." Ariel leaned wearily against the tree. The painted girl crumpled at her feet, trembling, her breath shallow and pained. Ariel sipped from her water flask and then offered it to the girl, but she turned her head away. The blood on her wrists was dark and dry. Ariel used a bit of water from the flask to wash them. The girl clenched her teeth, made strangled little cries. "I'm sorry this hurts," said Ariel, "but I have a balm that will help." The painted girl dried her wrists upon the veil, shaking her head. "My feet," she managed after a moment. She shifted gingerly. Ariel did not at first know what she meant. She took one of the dark girl's painted feet upon her lap and brushed the dust from it. She saw gashes and blood upon the sole. "How did this happen?" she cried. "I felt nothing sharp underfoot." The girl shook her head. "Before you came, the Magus cut my feet, so that even if I escaped his chain, I could not run." Ariel started and stared. As gently as she might, she washed the feet of the painted girl, using the hem of her desert shift for a cloth. The veiled girl's breath grew ragged suddenly. Ariel was not sure whether with laughter or sobs. "I love your dark beauty," she spat. "I love your dark love." She was weeping, the swirls across her cheeks growing muddy with tears. Ariel did not understand what she had said. The other unfastened the veil from her face, and Ariel realized then, with a start, that it was not paint that made the girl's skin dark. The dots and whorls upon her cheeks were not pale unpainted places, but white paint daubed upon dark skin. "It was what he used to say to me," the girl went on. "My dark beauty, my dark love, I'll give my own child to the bird before you." She turned her head away again, and Ariel said nothing for a while. Irelath. She could not get the thought of him out of her mind suddenly, and did not know why. She gazed at the painted girl's skin, black as the boy she had seen upon the sea. "I did not realize you were so dark," she murmured at last. "I thought the paint—" The girl put one hand to her cheek. "This?" The stuff came away on her fingertips. Bride paint. They thought he must want something other than a meal this time. She scrubbed at it suddenly fierce, and at the backs of her white daubed hands, and it smeared. Ariel caught her breath in then. The thought welled up all at once without her bidding. "I, too, have been a dark angel's bride. False lover, false love." Ariel washed the painted girl's cheeks, her hands. She took ambergris from her pack and crumbled it and rubbed the waxy green granules into the soles of her feet and her wrists. Very carefully she bound them up, using the dark girl's veil. Ariel touched her feet again. "Do they pain you still?" The other shook her head. Her hair was parted in little squares, braided close to the skull. "Then why do you weep?" The dark girl sat limply against the tree. Her breathing quieted and she spoke dully. "When I was in the Magus's house, the rose-skinned ones used to say, 'When I am free I will go to Rani,' and the blue-skinned ones to Bern. When I am free, where my kith are, where I was born. But where are my kith? Where was I born?" She shrugged, shivering, chafing her arms. "My first mistress bought me from a Bernean trader, who would not say where he had got me. I've never heard of any land where the people are like me." She looked at Ariel. "The Magus used to let me leave the house and walk abroad when I would. He knew I could not run away. 'You will never leave me, my black chick,' he said. 'You have nowhere to go.'" Ariel knelt, putting her hand on the dark girl's hand, and strangely, for the first time since the heron had brought her staff, she was not afraid of Orm. "Come with me a while," she said. "I was once a slave, bought as a babe. I have no kith and no home. I go where I like. but I do know where you are from. I passed it crossing the sea of dust. A boy stood fishing on a reef. The skin was like shadow. I'm going to Terrain, but after I must cross the mere again, I'll take you if you'll come." The dark girl looked at her. "What is your name?" "Erin," the other said. Her tears had stopped. "I am Iriel." She offered the girl their last water, and this time Erin drank. "Why did you call me Spirit in the Grove?" The other handed back the flask. "I did not see you come. You seemed to appear out of the air. Your skin was so white, the sun shone clear through you. I took you for an orchard sprite." Iriel laughed. The girl stood up, leaning against the tree. Iriel made to help her, but the other shook her off. "I can walk. The cuts are not deep. He is too much a coward to cut me deep, but he rubbed salt in the cuts to make them burn." "What did you put on them?" "Ambergris. It has taken the burning away." They continued on through Zambul, following no road, only the heron's flight. The hills had grown more wooded here. Not long into their second march, the two gargoyles overtook them. Iriel embraced them, laughing with relief. Tongues lolling from running, they fawned on her. They looked battered and disarrayed, but otherwise unharmed. Iriel stroked the winged one. It rubbed its head against her hand, made in its throat a thrumming sound like beetles' wings. She fed it the second of the apricots from the pack, saving the seed, and watched some of its gauntness leave. "Cat wings," she murmured, stroking its scabby chin. The air grew cooler as the fortnight rolled on. When Erin and she slept, Iriel put the travelling cloak over them both. They had no water now, and access to none, for they kept wide of cottages and towns. But Erin showed Iriel where to find succulent night fruit or wine's sheath in flower, and how to cook the fresh-laid eggs of lizards and birds on red oven rock that held the heat of Solstar long into the night. Iriel sang Erin tales when they camped. The ground they travelled seemed to be rising, the vegetation growing lusher. Fruit on the trees became more plentiful. The hollow reed grasses they sucked for moisture were fatter now with juice. The fortnight was nearly done when Iriel heard a gentle lapping sound. "What is that?" she said, softly halting. Erin, playing with the dust shrimp, looked up. "I hear nothing." Iriel took a few steps through the trees. The noise was faint, familiar. She could not think what it was. Erin put the dust shrimp back on Iriel's sleeve. The white heron was nowhere to be seen. Both gargoyles had lifted their muzzles, testing the air. Iriel, too, now could smell it. "Water," she murmured. "Running water." The gargoyles bounded away through the underbush. Iriel pushed through the foliage. She heard splashing ahead, stumbled into a clearing. A tiny pool lay before them, feeding a stream that spilled away among the trees. The gargoyles had flung themselves into the water. The heron alighted beside the channel. The gargoyles wrestled and nipped each other. Iriel and Erin had to duck their spray. The dust shrimp hid from the wet in a fold of her garment. Iriel laid her things at the wood's edge, slipped from her travelling cloak and shift, and waded into the pool. The water was warm, streaming in the cool night air. The gargoyles subsided. The heron speared a fish. Erin pulled off her travel-stained garb, knelt at the pool's edge and cupped her hands. Iriel leaned back and let the water support her. Its taste was very slightly sweet. Earthshine fell blue, the starlight pale grey, but their light in the pool wavered yellow and white. Iriel came into the pool, and Iriel noticed for the first time that she was very slender. Her breast was not quite so flat as a boy's, her hips not quite so lean. They bathed in the still, bright, streaming water and drank. Iriel looked up suddenly. The gargoyles had long since clambered back onto the bank, shaken off now, and lay sprawled there, one dozing, the other nibbling its matted fur. Above the lapping and soft plashing, Iriel heard a sound. Erin, lying back upon the water, opened her eyes. "What is it?" The noise had been so faint, distant, dying. It did not come again. Iriel shook her head. Nothing. It must have been wind amongst the trees. But there was no wind. The night was still. Erin closed her eyes again, but Iriel stood a few minutes listening, and nothing stirred. She came out of the pool, letting the cool air dry her. Then she dressed and sat toying with her bandolin. Presently there came another sound, louder and nearer than the first, a belling and bawling like wounded keen. Then nothing, and suddenly much nearer, the breaking of bush. Grayling and Catwink bolted to their feet. The heron looked up. Even Erin, lying upon the water, had heard it, and she stood. A grey beast came out of the trees. Across the pool, its rib cage heaved. Its snorted breath curled white upon the air. Its body had the shape of a skeletal calf. Its knobbly limbs were hoofed. A nest of horns tangled its brow. It did not seem to see them at first. Staggering, it pitched to its knees beside the pool and sucked at the water, straining against the brass collar encircling its throat. Ariel recognized it then. "Mooncalf!" she cried. The last of the 6 gargoyles she had tamed, and that one, even tame, had been so skittish. It was starving now, gaunt as a bone. "Mooncalf!" she whispered. The grey beast started up, snorting and staring. Erin in the pool shrank back from it. It stood at Wood's edge, head up, and seemed on the verge of bolting. The greyling yipped. Catwing gave a throaty cry, and the grey beast's glazed eyes seemed to clear. Ariel reached into her pack and held out an apricot. The rich, pungent scent hung in the air. The mooncalf's nostrils flared. It forded the pool, swam past Erin without a sideward glance, folded its limbs before Ariel and lay down, and let her take its thorny-crowned head in her arms. It ate the apricot and seemed to sleep. Its grey eyes closed, its panting eased. The gauntness of its sides grew less. Ariel put the seed up and stroked the mooncalf's nose. Erin came out of the water, staring at the new beast and at Ariel, but the dark girl said nothing as she dried and dressed. Then all of a sudden came another sound, a questing cry like the calling of horns. The mooncalf sprang to its feet and fled through the trees. Without a sound, Greyling and Catwing followed. A party of horsemen came out of the trees. Their skin was pale amber, their horses were black. Footmen held leashes of leaf-dappled hounds. Ariel stared. She had never seen horses before that had no wings. One rider, the foremost, rode forward a few paces, raising one hand to keep the others back, and made the footmen still the yelping and baying of the dogs. He wore a turban upon his head like the woman of Isthmus. "Whoa, what's this?" he said, gazing at Ariel. "We've been hunting for the grey neat this long fortnight, but it is other quarry we have found. Maid, you are a brave one to be abroad in these parts all alone." His words puzzled her. "Why do you call me alone?" she asked. Erin knelt in the grass half behind Ariel. The horseman glanced at her. He smiled. "One unarmed boy would do you little good amongst brigands, maid." Erin said nothing. Ariel said, "Is Zambul a country of brigands like Bern? If so, you are the first I have met." The horsemen behind him glanced at one another, but their leader merely threw back his head with a laugh. "Zambul," he said. "Do you take this for Zambul, that waterless bone?" "Have we come into Terrain, then?" said Ariel, startled, though the woods were nothing like she'd ever seen in Terrain. The rider smiled. "Terrain lies west of here. You have come too far north if you meant to cross over from Zambul. This is Piers." The horseman reined his champing horse. Again he was laughing at her. "And as for brigands, maid, I speak in jest. There are none such on my land." Ariel rose. "Can you point me the road to Terrain, then, and we'll trouble you no more?" The huntsman did not answer her at first, but he leaned forward in the saddle and eyed her. "My villa lies upon that road," he said. "It is not far. Surely you must be weary of travel, maid. Stop a little and honour my house." Ariel fingered her staff. Sometime between the coming of the mooncalf and the huntsman's arrival, the heron had settled again and faded back into the wood. Erin stood beside her, utterly silent, refusing to speak. Ariel studied the man on horseback before her, but could not read him. "We will go with you," she said carefully, "if you will show us the road to Terrain. I must go on to Orm as soon as may be." She lifted her pack. "I am Ariel." "Welcome, Ariel," the horseman cried, offering her his hand. "You will ride with me. Nightwalker can easily bear double." Before she could speak, he'd pulled her up beside him on the horse's back, sideways as though it was a couch. The horse moved a step, and Ariel gripped the saddle's back to keep from falling. "Put your arms about me," the huntsman said. Instead, Ariel doubled one leg across the horse's back till she was astraddle and could grip with her knees. The rider glanced over his shoulder at her, and he laughed. "As you will." He motioned his riders, clucked to his horse, but Ariel touched his arm and looked at Erin. The huntsman reined and shrugged impatiently. "Your boy can come after with the dogs." Ariel made to get down from the steed. "Erin will come with me." The horseman caught her about the waist, his tone hurriedly gentler. "Hold, maid, no need." He called sharply to one of his riders, who caught Erin's arm and hauled her up behind. I have told you our names, Iriel said, glad when the rider released her to gather the reins. Will you not give us yours? Mine, the huntsman said, spurring. The other riders fell in behind. Iriel clung to her staff and the saddle's back. The turbaned man laughed. I am suzerain here, he answered for her, the suzerain of peers. Iriel endured the journey, clamped her teeth at the sudden jolts and drops through the constantly downsloping land. At last they came in sight of the suzerain's palace. It was fashioned all of a cream-coloured stone that glowed in the cool Oceanus light. Iriel saw gardens. Among the greenery fountains played. They passed under the arch of a gate into a yard. As soon as the suzerain has made his mount stand still, Iriel sprang down and stood off. Only then did she see that he'd turned in the saddle to offer her his hand. The suzerain dismounted then, and though he smiled still, Iriel could see a hard edge had come into his smile. So be it then, she thought, for she did not much like being handed up and down backs of horses as though she was a pack. Erin too had slipped down from behind the guard. The suzerain nodded his companions away across the yard. He was tall, Iriel realised now that she saw him standing. Erin, who'd come up silently beside her, stood eyeing the turbaned man as well. Servants appeared, bearing cups and trays. Iriel realised how famished she was. A warm, steaming flask was pressed into her hand. The suzerain tossed his off in a draught. Iriel sipped. The sweet salt broth warmed her wonderfully. She took a tidbit from the tray, but noticed when servants offered Erin a cup and the tray, the dark girl turned away. After only a moment, the suzerain clapped his hands and the other servants departed. Iriel's hunger had only been whetted, and she gazed longingly after the disappearing trays. Her finished cup was taken gently by the boy who'd given it to her, and the suzerain said, "Come, my guest. I know you are weary, but let us walk a while in the gardens, and when we are done, I promise you a feast worthy of your welcome." The suzerain strolled through the grounds of his palace. After a time, Iriel realised with unease she had become separated from Erin, but however slowly she paced her step, a bevy of courtiers seemed always to intervene. Nor did the suzerain allow her to fall back or wait. He led her along winding footpaths. He told her what land this frond was from, what suzerainty had constructed the aquifer, until Iriel's head was fairly spinning and she wondered if they would ever pause. Then the suzerain was leading her out of the garden, up steps onto a broad stone-railed terrace. Cushions and white groundcloths lay spread before them. Braziers and lampstands blazed. Servants were kneeling, just setting the last dishes in place. There were platters piled high with roasted game chicks, bowls of nut meats, tureens of thick broth. There were loaves of bread no bigger than a fist, candied fruit stuffed with nuts, and baked fish bedded on cress. Iriel caught a whiff of it all and felt giddy with hunger. Her knees nearly gave. She scarcely noticed when the suzerain laid his hand upon her arm. She knelt and reached for whatever came closest to hand. Erin was not among the others, she noticed suddenly, and her uneasiness returned. Glancing back towards the steps, she caught a glimpse of a figure slipping in shadow and moving quietly away among the trees. Iriel frowned. Was that Erin? What was she up to? No one else seemed to have noticed the dark girl's departure. They feasted in silence for a little time. Only when Iriel began to feel satisfied did she realise she'd had nothing to drink since their arrival. Looking up from her plate, she saw all the courtiers had cups. She glanced at the suzerain too. He too had a goblet from which he drank. Iriel's throat felt thick and dry. The suzerain noticed her glance and seemed to start. "Wine!" he called. Then he muttered, dawdling servants. Louder. "Where is the wine I ordered for my guest?" A steward came forward and bent to murmur in his sovereign's ear. "Well, see to it, can't you?" the suzerain said. The steward hurried away. The lord of the villa turned back to Iriel, all smiles. Some delay in the kitchen, I suppose. Iriel said nothing, wondering why the suzerain did not simply take one of the empty cups and fill it from any of the wine pitchers before them. But the wait was brief. The steward returned, half dragging, half shoving another servant before him. "Have a care with that," the suzerain snapped, as the steward nearly caused the serving man to spill the pitcher he carried. Iriel loosened the laces at the throat of her travelling cloak. She'd fastened them against the chill night wind during the ride, and had kept them fastened since, but she was warm now, with food and the heat from the braziers. She turned her head a little to avoid the suzerain's eyes. They seemed ever to be searching her. "Utmost apologies, my lord," the steward was mumbling, signing to the servant to fill the cup he held in his other hand. "The herbalist said they had difficulty." He stopped himself suddenly, and at the suzerain's glare he stammered on, "With the proper spices, my lord." The servant poured from the pitcher into the cup. "How is that?" Ariel inquired. "Is my wine different somehow from the rest?" The suzerain shrugged irritably. "Oh, how should I know?" he muttered. "Everything my servants do. Perhaps they sought to honour you with some special wine. Give her the cup, can't you?" A gleam of sweat had formed on the suzerain's brow. She wondered at it, for the night around them was pleasantly cool. The suzerain was suddenly staring at her. "Your eyes," he said. She looked at him. "They are green." Ariel nodded, shifting uneasily beneath the directness of his gaze. "Yes," she said. The serving man held out the cup. "I had not realized before the colour of your eyes." "I cannot help their colour," she answered. It was a strange colour for eyes, she knew, but they have always been so. Ariel reached for the cup. A suzerain's hand caught the serving man suddenly and twisted the goblet from him. A sup spilled across Ariel's outstretched fingers. "Fool!" the suzerain growled. "This is not the wine I bade you bring." "My lord, it is exactly," the steward cried. "Then I've changed my mind," said his lord with a savage glance. "I will not have such young trash served at my board. Never dare bring it before me again." He dashed the contents of the cup across the far tiles of the terrace. The pitcher followed with a clang. Dark liquid ran from the vessel's neck into the squares of earth where fronds and lilies grew along the balcony's stone rail. With a brusque gesture, the suzerain sent his steward and the servant away. He wiped his brow with a linen lapscarf. "Here, you must have wine," he said, a little breathless. And he poured from his own pitcher into her cup. Ariel made protest, but he would not have it. She saw his hand tremble ever so slightly as he set the pitcher down. Take mine, I'm done, and they will be all fortnight fetching something fit." He lifted the cup. "You see, this is old wine, excellent." He took a sip, and Ariel was not sure whether he drank to steady himself or to show her the wine was good. "Here, take it." He pressed the cup to her hands and nearly forced it to her lips. Ariel did drink then, and deeply, though she'd never drunk wine before, save half a year ago when she'd shared a wedding cup with Erlath. The suzerain's wine was hot and sweet. It brought back her weariness to her. She noticed Erin then just coming up the terrace steps, slipping silently into place upon an empty cushion. Ariel felt relief at her companion's return. Hardly noticing the dark girl's face was strangely drawn. She stared at the suzerain and then at Ariel. Shortly thereafter the suzerain ended the meal and had them escorted to their rooms. Ariel noticed Erin stayed beside her the whole way. She would not be parted from her when they reached the chamber that was to be Ariel's. "But my lord has ordered other quarters for your boy," the chamberlain said. "We will share this one," Ariel replied. The old man seemed perturbed. "But lady, there is but one couch." "I am not a lady," said Ariel, "and it makes no matter. Erin will stay with me." The chamberlain looked at Ariel, and she back at him. Erin, beside her, glanced beyond him down the hall. In a moment the wizened man cast his eyes down and muttered, "As you wish." When the suzerain's chamberlain had departed, Erin rose quietly from where she sat and drew the door shut. The cool draught of air from the windows ceased. Ariel stood her walking stick in one corner. "Why did you do that?" Erin came back and sat down near the broad high window that opened onto the balcony. "So that I may speak with you," she said. "We may speak with the door open, surely," Ariel said, fanning herself with her hand. "There is no one about." "The suzerain has posted 4 guards on you. Did you not see?" Ariel shook her head. It felt heavy. "They are just down the hall." Ariel started towards the door and then thought better of it. "When did he do that?" "After the feast." Ariel sat down and took off her travelling cloak. The wine had made her flushed and hot. "Why did you eat nothing?" she asked. "Why did you slip away?" Erin looked off. "I do not like him." "We will not be here long," Ariel said. Your feet." "My feet are well," Erin snapped. Ariel rubbed her neck. "You've eaten nothing," she began. I found fruit in the garden, the dark girl answered, and clear water. I found another thing in the garden too. Ariel looked up. Go on, she said. Her eyelids felt heavy. Erin was watching her. A boy, a youth about your age, very finely garbed, some courtier. He was knocking down plums from a tree with a stick. He gave me some. Ariel sighed. She felt stifled. Her limbs seemed loose. He said I'd do well to watch my fare at the suzerain's board, the dark girl said. Ariel shook her head. Her senses were swimming. Why was that? When I pressed him, he drew from his breast a little withered wart he'd seen that one of the herbalists gathering among the kitchen herbs. It was a spice then, sighed Ariel, leaning heavily upon one hand. Erin shook her head. He said the leaves were used to make blue dye, but that the root that held the juice to kill you in 2 breaths. Ariel lay down upon the couch, for she was weary. The suzerain's wine was making her head ache. Ariel could hardly follow Erin, who was still speaking. When he said that, I ran back towards the feast, though the young man cried out in surprise, Boy, what do you care if your master drinks my uncle's draught? It will set you free. He thought you a youth, I think, from that distance, and me a boy. He did not follow me. When I reached the terrace steps, too out of breath to cry warning, I saw your cup still dry, the suzerain's servant pouring wine, when suddenly his lord dashed the cup from your hand. He said the vintage was bad, muttered Ariel. She could not keep her eyes open. She was not used to wine, and it made her thoughts sluggish. She did not understand what Erin was trying to say, and nor did she care. He said he'd changed his mind, Erin cried angrily, but Ariel scarcely heard. The suzerain's wine was numbing her limbs, and already she was drifting into sleep.